Okay, so welcome everyone. We're delighted to have this number of people on the call today. So this is our STEM by Nature professional learning, and it's on trees, woods and forests. So lovely to see you all here. So who are we? Just thought I'd give a little introduction. So I'm Rebecca Logston. I work with the John Muir Trust. It's a UK charity which is its aim is to protect wild places. You might know us through our engagement initiative, the John Muir Award. Some of you on the call are obviously John Muir Award providers. So my role is to support secondary schools in the main with the John Muir Award. I've got my colleague Lorna, who's going to come on the camera and just to introduce herself, who'll be supporting me on the session.
Hi, I'm Lorna, and I also work as part of the John Muir Award team in partnership with the Learning Outdoor Support team in East Ayrshire. I predominantly work with teachers, but more recently supporting a lot of families with award work.
Wonderful, thanks Lorna. And Lorna's going to be helping me with sort of delivering some of the sessions, so we'll see Lorna again. We've got Jenny Holmes, who also works with the award team on sort of technical backup, so she might be responding to you in the chat box function. And this session wouldn't have happened without Rob Bushby, who's worked with Scottish Forestry developing this resource, this session. So there's actually a resource that will support this, and we can send that out to you afterwards. There's a follow-up email, and we'll send you all the links and all the information that we mentioned today will be packaged up for you. So yeah, this is obviously come about through funding from Scottish Forestry. So we're delighted to be working in partnership with Scottish Forestry to deliver this session today. So what we're hoping to do. So the aims of the session, so it is tailored for primary ages and upwards. In the who we are, I know on the call today we have got some early years practitioners. I'm hoping that you would be able to find some of the activities that you could adapt them. We are also tailoring this session to a Scottish audience. It's funded by Scottish Forestry, so we are going to mention Scottish curriculum links, but we also have some people from the UK on the call. So again, I'm sure there will be some ways that you can adapt what we're talking about to the English and Welsh curriculum. Delighted to have you as UK representatives. So yeah, it's tailored for that upper primary and secondary age group, but hopefully you can adapt it. We're aware of the context at the moment that many of us are not doing face-to-face teaching and learning at the moment. We're supporting remote learning. So we're hoping that some of the activities that we're going to showcase to you tonight will be things that you could potentially use. We're going to showcase some films. We're going to show you some resources. Perhaps some of those might be things that you could share with remote learners that you could actually just be using right now. So we're thinking very much of the context of where learning and teaching is at the moment. On the call, we don't just have primary and secondary schools though, or early years. We also have environmental charities. So we're delighted to have RSPB and the TCV. We've got outdoor centres. We've also got groups that work with adult groups as well. So we're hoping that this session will meet all of those audiences. It's quite a broad challenge, but we're hoping that it's going to work. So what we're hoping to do is to give you some background to the context of STEM and STEM by Nature, give you a little bit of an idea of what STEM by Nature is. We've used this headline of trees, woods and forests because we wanted it to be open to anyone that's got a single tree in a school ground, or that a young person can make a connection to a tree in a park or down their street, but also maybe people have got access to woods or even larger blocks of forests. So we wanted to encompass all of that tree related theme. So that's why we've called it trees, woods and forests. So all of the activities are obviously got that tree related, that all tree related. We're going to look at obviously the Scottish curriculum. We would normally be doing this outside. We'd love to have delivered this outside. That's how Lorna and I deliver our training usually. But what this has meant is that we've got nearly 100 people on this call. So what we lose in terms of face-to-face, hopefully we gain in terms of inviting you all to get involved. So we really do want your full participation. There's going to be opportunities to feed in ideas and to share your experience. So yeah, please do fully participate. That's very much the tone of the session today, is to really invite you to share your expertise. We're aware that we've got some people that are coming to this new, and it might be very much introducing tree identification, for example, for someone that's never identified a tree. And then we've got some people maybe in the OWLS network, the OWLS Scotland network, that are very comfortable with tree ID. So hopefully we can kind of support each other and share our experiences, and some things might be a refresher, or it might be just a different way that you could use that activity. We are not just going to focus on STEM as well. We're going to bring in arts and literacy, but just a little bit of a nod to that really. We're going to break down the session depth into activities that you can do for science, activities for technology and engineering and maths, and then we're just going to have a little bit a reference to literacy, art and creativity. This is, I don't know if other local authorities are using this as STEAM. It's often referred to as STEAM, where it really does include the arts. So we're just going to kind of make a reference to that, but the main focus of it is on those STEM subjects. So what is STEM by nature? This is the result of a 2-year pilot that the Trust, the John Muir Trust and Field Studies Council have been working on, funded by Education Scotland. So we've been working on STEM by nature. It's not to add another sort of term in a kind of cluttered educational jargon context. It's really about taking STEM subjects outdoors, and how can nature and connecting to nature and really tuning into nature really help to build those STEM subjects, but also STEM skills. So I will talk about skills a little bit later. So we really, as part of the pilot that we've been running with teachers in Tayside and Fife, we've really been focusing on STEM skills to keep it very broad. We've covered as part of the pilot the other sessions that we've been running on the UN Sustainable Goals. We've been running sessions on climate action and coasts and waters, and all of this information is packaged up nicely on a Padlet. And again, as part of that follow-up email that we will send out to you, we'll send you the link to this information and resources Padlet for the whole STEM by Nature programme, and you can have a look and dive into any of those topics. And trees and forests and woods are obviously included in that. So before we get into the sort of the main meat and of the session tonight, I just wanted to actually hear from you and your experience. So I'm just going to, my colleague Jenny is going to put in a link to a WooClap. So this is like a whiteboard basically, and we can all produce a Wordle by dropping in our ideas and things like that. So I'm going to just get it up on the screen. So Jenny's just put the link into the box. Don't go yet. I just need to explain what you need to do. So in a minute, click on the link. It will take, hopefully it will open up in another tab on your browser, so you don't need to leave this meeting. And you can just go and answer the question, and I'll be sharing the responses on the screen in a minute, so you can then come back into the meeting and see what everyone else has contributed. Okay. So when you press the link, click into the link, you might need to look on the left hand side, and it says join an event, and you just type in trees in capital, and that means you're in this WooClap event for the rest of the next couple of hours, and we'll be using WooClap throughout the session. So if everyone would like to just now press that link, and the answers, the questions we would like you to answer is, what is your favourite tree? And we will share the answers to that, and also why you like that tree. And we also want you to share a connection, one connection to a tree, whether it's a resource you've used, an activity you love to do. That's on a second question there. So if you would like to do that, I will just share some of the results that we're getting through as people are going into WooClap just now. So it's a little bit like a poll, isn't it, for our trees here. We've got oak is coming up, still really strong. And some of the reasons as to why people like them, strength and the look of them. Silver birch is pretty popular. Rowan, seeing quite a lot of native trees here. Pine. So it's great. Hopefully you can see this on the screen as well, the answers and the responses to people there. Okay, and I think what we'll do now is we'll move on to the next question. So that's lovely. Let me just, well, before we move on, so oak still seems to be the winner there. And there's, what we can do is send you these Wordle images, and we can share the images of those. Then you can kind of unpack that a little bit as well. So, but yeah, lovely to see all those connections you've got to trees. I'm going to open it up to the next question, which is to share one connection with trees, woods and forests. So if you would like to now share one connection, Jenny, you might need to just put in the link to the second question, and you can scroll through it, or people can, here we go, woodwork teacher. Let's just share what I'm seeing on the screen, which is all of your responses to this. foraging, hugging a tree, poetry. It's quite difficult to read when it's still moving at the moment. Owl Scotland, that's a lovely plug to the Owls Network there. Books, whittling. Tree hugging is coming really big. Climbing, fantastic. Bucket, that was interesting. Africa, story writing. Artist, local woods, wild. Wonderful. Lots of connections people are making already. Nuts, chestnuts, ecotherapy. Great, and hugging a tree's in there, lovely. Lots of lovely responses. Great, as we get so many responses, it then makes it very difficult to read, but and forest bathing, wonderful. So what I'll do now is I'll just take us back to, so thank you for your responses. As I say, we'll share these WooClap brainstorming that we do. We'll be able to get those because obviously it's quite a lot of richness in those as well. Thank you, and hopefully that's helped you as well to look at another use of technology. It certainly has for me. That's the first time I've used WooClap. So here we're back with the slides. So just moving on, this was something that we asked. We did some webinars for practitioners going back as part of education recovery in August of this year after our first lockdown, and we did lots of online professional learning for teachers, and we asked them during those sessions to make connections with STEM outdoors. And these are some of the resources here. Hopefully you can see this Wordle that is up on the screen now. These are some of the connections that people made with STEM outdoors, and you won't be surprised to see all the tree related activities and themes there. So den building, angles and den, dens come up quite a lot, building bug hotels. So lots of these things, shapes in nature, circumference of trees, lots of these things were things that you need, twigs that you needed trees to do these activities. So you can just see this sort of tree theme coming out already. Moving on to our next one, just in terms of setting the context for STEM within the curriculum for Scotland, curriculum for excellence in Scotland, we've a refreshed narrative. I'm hoping this is not new to lots of practitioners in Scotland, learning across the four contexts there. So we've got interdisciplinary learning, we've got opportunities for personal achievement, the ethos and life of the school and community, and curriculum areas and subjects. So this is an empty one here, and you might like to work up your own. We've completed one, and we'll share this with you at the end of the session. So have this in mind as we go through the session, just have this in mind about making these connections to these four contexts. We're certainly going to be helping with unpacking curriculum areas, because we're going to take each curriculum area at a time, but we'll also be talking about interdisciplinary learning a little bit. You can see how some of these connections might be made, and we'll also mention some opportunities for personal achievement. I've already mentioned one, the John Muir Award, but we'll mention a couple of other awards that might be available, but also some other ways that you could mark personal achievement. So this is something we're going to come back to, and it's something also that we can send you a link to as well. In terms of taking the curriculum outdoors, this is the John Muir Award and Curriculum for Excellence resource, and there's a map inside of that, a little route map that takes you for the different curriculum areas. And so this might be a good start point in terms of unpacking sort of what links you can make across the subjects, and obviously science and the STEM subjects are in there as well. So I think Jenny has got a link there that she could just put into the chat box for this resource. So when we're talking about STEM, as part of the STEM by Nature pilot, we looked beyond the subjects because we wanted to make sure that STEM was accessible. And what we were discovering, and this is part of Education Scotland's role as well, was that that there are gender stereotypes, and that you often see young people of the different genders there choosing different subjects. So they might see, so for example, you might see boys are more likely to choose not to choose biology as a subject in secondary, and then for girls would be less confidence in science and maths, just as examples. So usually when you talk about a subject, there's often a stereotype, a gender stereotype to that subject, and sometimes that can then be a barrier to the other gender getting involved and taking part. So when we looked at this, we wanted to make sure it's accessible for all, that we could maybe leave some of that stereotyping behind, and we could open it up. So we started looking at it from a STEM skills perspective. And one of the frameworks that we came across, so this is from the Young STEM Leader Award. This is the second level, level 2. So they've had a national rollout of this award. Anyone can put in the chat box if they've been involved or if they've heard about Young STEM Leader and made any connections. But this is a sort of framework that they have, and some of the skills that they've talked about as well, like developing leadership skills, presentation and communication and social skills. So let's see other ones, building confidence and resilience. So there's lots of kind of core skills that they identify as part of this award. We also looked at the top 10 employability skills, and this was from STEM Learning as well, so it does have that STEM reference. And what we did is, I appreciate this is too small to take notes on, so what we did is we distilled it into 1 or 2 words. So these are the kind of STEM skills that we identified. And what we then did is, then when we went outside and carried out some activities, we wanted it up and front and centre that these were the STEM skills that we were framing activities around, that we were asking young people to reflect on as well. So example, if you were going out to do some tree measuring, what of these STEM skills would you be meeting? So you might be working as a team, so therefore you're working at teamwork. You might want to set a deadline, therefore they're meeting a deadline. They might have to show initiative about actually how they go through that process. They're obviously communicating with their peers. And they're also problem solving as well if it's not quite gone wrong, or how they could adapt things. So I think it's really useful to think of STEM in this broad sense as a safer accessibility, but also just as a way to review the learning as well. Often the STEM subject is there and people can make those connections, but if you bring it to STEM skills, I think that can really bring a richness. So I'd just like to sort of pause there and just ask if anyone has any questions on the information that I've just given to you just there about the kind of context of STEM and where we're at. So you can pop anything in the chat box if there was anything there. Someone's just said, I've been involved with Young STEM Leader Award, and I've done an introduction and can see the application to our school for peer support. Brilliant. So yeah, it's something that people could look into, and something to also mention is that you can dovetail a lot of these youth achievement awards. So for example, if you were doing your John Muir Award, and I know lots of people on this session are John Muir Award providers, you could also be looking at integrating the Young STEM Leader Award as well as part of that. We will make the PowerPoint slides available as well as a PDF as part of that follow-up email as well. Just a wee reminder to folk just to turn your cameras off and your mics off just as we go on as well. So I just now want to hand on. We're going to now, the next bit of the session is to take each subject in turn and to just look at some activities and how you can bring this alive outdoors. So I'm going to ask my colleague Lorna to come on the mic, and we're going to look at science.
Hi all, that's me back. So we've had a little look at the STEM skills and how these are linked to employability. We're now going to have a look at each of the STEM subjects, arts and creativity in turn, starting with science. Can I have next slide, please? So learning about science outdoors can encourage deeper thinking about the use of natural resources and the impact on our environment, biodiversity and change in the weather and landscapes. Seeing firsthand the scale of our natural world and the wonder it brings. Curiosity and care for our natural world. Again, the outdoors allows science to be real life rather than lab work or something other people do. So using trees, woods and forest settings gives meaningful experiences, opportunity to discuss what we see in the moment and can help develop scientific and mathematical language. Unfortunately, we're not all lucky enough to have access to woodland settings very close to where we work, but even the sparsest green spaces often have trees. And sometimes with less to see, we often notice smaller changes and really get to know our trees and our areas better. So don't be put off if you don't have a big woodland close by. As you can see in the slides, I'd like you to have a little look at the leaf on the left, please. What can you see? I think you could use the chat box here if you don't mind, and tell me, what do you see when you look at that one leaf in the left-hand side of the slide? If we were actually in a woodland or close to trees, we could think about not only what we see, but about texture and smell as well. Oh gosh, the chat box is going mad. Veins, yep, we see veins, we see teeth, we see serrated edges, colour, green, Gosh, it's whizzing by. So much completeness. I like that one from Rachel. That's a nice one. Jaggy bits, yep. Shapes, serrated edge, lots and lots of different things. Asymmetrical, another nice one, yep. Stuart, I'm not going to say that one out loud because that's a quiz later. You're too clever. Yep, brilliant. That's all really, really good answers. So we'll stop that. Apology accepted, Stuart. We'll stop that there because we've seen so many different things, all from one leaf. So can you imagine if you were in a woodland or if you're with a tree, all the different things you could see? The picture on the right-hand side is a picture by Steve Smart Artwork. This is a nice way to not only encourage curiosity inquiry, like we did with the green leaf of no name, Stuart, but it can also encourage that creativity aspect as well. We're going to watch a film next by a friend of mine, and it's about identifying trees. Many of you will already be able to do some tree ID, but you could share this film with your young people. Before we put the film on, I'd like you to think about how important or how confident are you identifying trees, and does this matter? The film is by Jo Dempster. She's the STEM tutor from the Princess Foundation in Dumfries House, and she's also the chair of the Ayrshire Owl Group. Okay, we're ready to play when you are.
Learning to identify some common tree species. Before you start worrying about getting your identification guide out, learn some new vocabulary. For example, this kind of leaf here is what's known as a compound leaf. This is the whole leaf, but off of one central vein you'll get these smaller leaflets that make up the whole. You can even see here at the end where the leaf attaches to the tree. In contrast, this is a simple leaf. Again, you can see the end where the leaf attaches to the tree, but instead of being made up of smaller parts, this is one whole leaf. So compound, made up of smaller leaflets, simple, one whole leaf. Veins are these channels that run through the leaf and carry nutrients to the edge of the leaf and back into the tree. There are two different ways these veins can be arranged, pinnate and palmate. A pinnate leaf has veins that are arranged off of one central pin. You can see the main vein runs through the leaf from top to bottom, and most of the other major veins come straight off of that one vein. This is a pinnate leaf. Palmate leaves, instead of having one central pin, all of their main veins come off of one point at the base of the leaf like this, a little bit like spreading your palm out and having your fingers all come off from one central point. So pinnate veins come off a central pin, palmate veins come out from the centre of the leaf. Another feature to look out for is whether or not the leaf has teeth. These serrations along the edge of the leaf are what are known as teeth. You can see that in this leaf we've got quite a jagged edge, and in this leaf we've got a very smooth edge. So this one has teeth and this one doesn't. The final vocabulary I'll introduce you to just now is whether or not a leaf has lobes. Lobes, a little bit like your earlobes, are these protrusions that sit out of the side of your leaf. So this leaf here is a perfect example. You can see the lobes are these lumps on the edge of the leaf's surface. You can have lobes that are smooth, like this leaf, or you can have lobes that are pointed, like this leaf. Have a go at a bit of a leaf treasure hunt using the features you've just learned. You might be looking for a palmate leaf with a toothed edge that is simple, or you might be looking for a compound leaf like this one. Use the vocabulary until you're used to it. Finally, get yourself an ID guide.
Thanks, Jenny. So were you able to ID the leaf? So was our leaf compound? Was it simple? Did it have lobes, or was it smooth? So now's your chance. Does anybody want to have a go at naming our leaf in the chat box? Good, well done. It's hazel, yes. Good. scientific language comes out of Tree ID. We also have some other nice resources to show you. On the next slide, please. So nice resources for tree identifications. We have Scotland's tree species as a nice link, and we'll have that in the tomorrow's or the next day's after webinar email that comes out to you. This doesn't only aid with identification, but it brings the trees alive with facts and stats. And I think if we can get people in general to really want to get to know more about the tree, this encourages better getting to know them and better science. So did you know the oldest yew tree in Britain, if not in Europe, is just west of Aberfeldy, and it's said to be over 5,000 years old. So that's the kind of facts you can get in the Scotland's tree species. The Woodlands Trust have a nice identification app, and the Field Studies Council tree name trail is excellent. You just follow the grid until you figure out which kind of tree it is. Owl Scotland will be launching an ID for trees very soon. I'm not sure if Bonnie knows when. She could maybe pop it in the chat box if she does know. There we go. It's the Fortingall. Yes, it is, Bonnie. Could I have the next slide, please? Rebecca, I'm not seeing slides.
Sorry, Lorna. We were going to do a woo clap. We're going to do a woo clap discussion just now. So I will share that one. It was about what people could do with leaves. So do you want to do that one?
Yep.
Jenny, would you like to put the link in the chat box for this one, and I'll just get that all opened up so we can share the answers to that.
So we're going to pop in the woo clap. What can you do with leaves, trees or bark? Think about any potential learning opportunities and think about all areas of STEM or STEAM. And we'll share these images again in our post-webinar email.
So that should be coming up now. We've got
some it's coming up now.
That, Lorna? Grand.
Yeah, we've got painting with leaves, transient art. Gosh, it's going so fast. Leaf rubbing, matching, collecting and sorting, painting. We'll let it settle down, then we can look at a few more. Making a crown, yep, that's always a nice one. Sinking or floating. Sizing, yep. Gosh, it'll settle down shortly. Printing, colour matching. Oh, so many. Transient art sticking there, right there in the middle. It's a lovely activity. Yep. Leaf mobiles. Still going. Fractions. Yep, fractions. Gosh, it's going too fast now for me to read. We will send that out to you. Thanks, Rebecca. So examples that were in the word bubble, and I've got here are you can talk about seasons, tree types, photosynthesis, chemical reactions, biodiversity, carbon cycle, green space and town planning, landscape elements, ecosystem services, health and well-being, drawing, art, literature. It just goes on and on forever, doesn't it? The things you can do. Another activity that another website that's good is how a tree works, and how it is a function of different elements. So you've got roots, trunks, branches, leaves, and the roles that they use, the roles that they have, the use of soil, air, rain, and solar energy. There's a nice activity called How a Tree Works, and we'll send a link to this tomorrow. This activity works really well if it's next to trees, but if you don't have trees, you could just put pictures up. So young people build the structure of the tree, and they all play a part in bringing each part alive. This encourages naming the parts of the tree, functions of these parts, and what the trees need to grow to survive. Another thing that I think would be well worth having a look at about some science in trees is dendrochronology. That's the science of tree ring dating, and there's a lovely resource that I think Jenny is going to put in the chat box from Archaeology Scotland. From the way that all the rings are and the patterns of trees, they actually figured out that a piece of wood that was in a Viking longship, had a piece of wood had came from the same tree in Stirling Castle. That's just by they examine it and they put it all in graphs. It was very interesting, well worth a look. It's a really nice resource. Thanks, Jenny. So now we're going to look at tree cycles. So our Scotland Woodland Management Guide, this that you can see on the slides, it showcases the forest cycle of collecting, growing saplings, growth, harvesting and using wood products. Younger pupils can sort, sequence and learn about how important forestry is to meet the demands for wood products. It also brings opportunity for discussion and sustainability and a nice introduction to tree planting activities. The right tree in the right place is so very important. The Woodland Trust have a mapping tool which is excellent and allows planning and design by young people covering measurement, geometry and properties of shape. For older students, geographical skills including fieldwork to observe, record human and physical features in a range of methods. Rebecca, have we got something up with the slides? We've got Kathy.
I'm just going to share
on the
film
screen instead.
I'm just going to share the film just now. So I've got the young. This is the film from a John Muir Award provider, Leavenmouth High School. So I'll just get that sorted up. Do you want to just introduce that, Lorna?
Just a little, yeah. Get to that in a second. We're slightly out of sync, Rebecca. So there's a nice resource, as I said, tree tools for schools, and Jenny could maybe get, as you popped a link into that, is that in there? Thanks, Jenny. So recently, a John Muir Award group at Leavenmouth High School created Batswood. They explored flooding issues caused by climate change. The self-led learning shines through in this film. While you're watching the film, what learning really struck a chord with you? Could you pop it in the chat box for us? And do you see something that you think you could take forward from this film? Okay, Rebecca.
Flooding is a big part of the climate emergency. We'd like to share our Scottish flooding story from our John Muir Award experiences at our school. But first, a short introduction to the place we call Batswood. In 2016, Buckhaven High School in Fife was demolished and Leavenmouth Academy was built. The old high school became a piece of made-up land planted with grass. In 2017, we started a forest and we called it Batswood, and we've been busy there ever since.
We planted thousands of trees for the forest and 200 fruit trees for the orchards.
The construction work had disturbed the land. Now the lowest part of Batswood was a massive puddle, all winter and worse every year. Trees can't live in flooding like that, and we watched 4 large trees drown. We did try to save them by digging ditches to take the water away, but it was too little and too late. But we kept to our plan. We dug hollows to hold the water and drains to take the water away. We got some pipes and tried to take the water out with them. After a few weeks, we had a good drain, and we watched the water flowing away into the academy.
Then we found the frog spawn.
Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to take the water away. If all the water went away, the tadpoles would die too. So we built a dam at the end of the drain to keep the water for the tadpoles. But now the trees were in danger again. Did we want trees or tadpoles?
Sometimes we thought trees, sometimes we thought tadpoles. But when we thought both, we hatched a strategy to deal with dilemmas, to stay with the trouble and to think post-human beaver thoughts. We built ditches that went nowhere. We built dams that leaked because beaver dams leak. We disturb for diversity. We are beavers when Batswood needs beaver work.
Beavers without rivers are strange beavers indeed. To slow the water down, we made terraces like contours. This irrigates the trees in the dry parts and prevents them from drowning in the marshy parts.
We learned that sometimes to stop bad floods, we must create more floods.
The paradoxical nature of solving flooding with more flooding becomes easier to understand when we think about sharing the flood, rather than sending it down to someone unlucky below.
We had other thoughts about flooding too. The soil is heavy and doesn't hold much water. We noticed how few earthworms there were.
So we built a wormery and learned about the different worms. We're looking after the worms that make the food that the bigger earthworms eat. We hope to have millions of proper earthworms here, but it's going to take a while. So we keep adding and composting. We are composting for complexity and disturbing nature for diversity and much, much more.
We've thought about protecting by disturbing, by becoming beavers and worm farmers, but we are not beavers, we are make-believers. On made-up land, we make up nature, not by imagination or construction, but by disturbance. It was the disturbance of an industrial demolition that made the made-up land, and we are part of that industrial process. We are disturbers, and the land needs careful and well-chosen disturbances to nurture this land towards some new, healthier biodiversity.
But this is not the end of the story. There are larger disturbances yet to come. A huge housing estate is going to be built on the west side of Batswood. There will be a new primary school and 1,650 new houses. Next year, plans will be put in place for urban drainage, and we hope that it is sufficiently beaver-like to ensure that there's a wetland for wildlife and not just a big pipe sending all the water away. We would like to see a slow drainage system that copies the work of beavers and helps to combat the effects of climate change.
This story is a part of an ongoing John Muir Award programme and shows how we engage with the water and biodiversity in Batswood. Thanks for watching this video. It was written by Duncan Zool and read by Sunny Anderson, Bethany Downs, Katie Goodwin, Rhiannon Grant, Kieran MacDonald, Robert O'Brien and Jaden Taylor at Leavenmouth Academy in January 2021.
There's lots of lovely comments, Lorna, in the chat box if you wanted to read any of those out. There's some lovely stuff.
I've got it there. Just what a wonderful film. The learning is just amazing, isn't it? So some of the things we've got in the chat box: problem solving, yep, that's a good one. Alice, I like yours. Biomimicry, yep, imitation of nature. That's a huge part of it. It's something they learned how to, we can't solve this, we have to solve it a different way. Perseverance, teamwork, yep. Creative thinking for problems. Joanne, yep, everything, the world is connected. Oh, we've scrolled down a bit there. So yes, there's just so much learning. Problem solving and moral decision making. I liked it. It was like trees, tadpoles, which way is it going to be? Learning about the land and how there's always a knock-on effect of our decisions. You wonder if some of these young people will become the town planners of the future. Ecology, yep, cause and effect, fluid mechanics, ecology, learning about the land. Gosh, keep going, Lorna. Wicked problems, yes, problems that are too big for us to solve. Ecosystems, land management, empathy. I think empathy is a really big one, in connection to nature, yep. Let nature take care of itself and don't disturb it. Ownership and ambassadors. Stewardship, oh gosh, there's just so many, we could go on. Yes, I heard the poem as well, Rebecca, and part of being nature. Resilience, management, so many. I'm trying to scroll down as quick as I can. Changing to solve problems, leadership. Yeah, maybe we could, we could go on forever. Great use of drones and technology, yes, that their filmmaking skills were good. Reflection on impact of activities on nature. Yes, it's a super film, absolutely super film. And we can probably, are we able to put a link into that film, Rebecca, to share?
Yeah, we'll definitely share it as part of the follow-up email, and we'll also feed all these reflections back to the pupils that were involved, because I'm sure they'd be delighted with lots of responses. So
thank you. Right, where are we? On slide 18, yeah. So forests are part of the terrestrial ecosystem, and trees are unique in their ability to lock up large amounts of carbon in their wood. Forests can be significant stores of carbon. On average, carbon makes up 50% of a tree's total mass. This means that if we can work out the mass of trees we can actually work out how much carbon they're storing. We're going to look at that a little bit later in the session. Slide 19, please, Rebecca. Thank you. Earlier on, we watched a film that Joe told us about. That was the one about IDing trees. The film carries on and it talks a bit more about nature's calendar. We'll put a link a link to the film following this. Nature's calendar has lots of examples of citizen science, and it's all set out seasonally. Every year since 1753, the date of some key springtime events have been recorded. So this is called phenology, the study of cyclic and seasonal natural phenomena. So what does this actually mean? It's about tracking the effects of weather and climate change on trees and wildlife, such as when the leaf buds first burst, the first ripe fruit, when leaves start falling, and something that's happening now or in the past few weeks of when the first snowdrops appear. So phenology, this is the study of seasonal events and how they change over time. Some events might be triggered by changing temperatures, while others by increasing daylight. If they get mismatched, this can cause problems in the food chain. Food web disruption is highlighted. The impact of climate change affects this. For example, a tree gets its energy from the sun. Caterpillars get their energy from eating the leaves. Blue tits get their energy from eating the caterpillars. If one part of the chain is affected, this impacts on the rest of the chain. Has Jenny put a link to the film, and could we maybe pop a link in the tomorrow's email to Nature's Calendar? Really worth a look. I think the way it sorts all the different citizen science out into time of year makes it really good. Could we have the next slide, please? So this slide shows a few resources that I find are quite useful. So soil beneath our feet. It's easy to dismiss soil as just dirt, but it offers so many unlimited possibilities for learning. The resource in the slide has activities from early level all the way to 3rd and 4th level. You can start with worm charming, painting with soils, or calculating how much carbon our soil stores. It's really well worth a look. The New Zealand Flatworm Survey. So how did this come about? So in the 1960s, Edinburgh Botanical Gardens imported a plant from New Zealand. There must have been either an egg case or a worm in one of these plants, or more than one, and they're now tracking to see how far these New Zealand flatworms are travelling. I actually managed to find one in a school over here in the Ayrshire coast, so they're travelling quite a way. So the survey asks you to search for the flatworms for a set time. It's 10 minutes, so very doable as part of your school timetable in one period. I ask you to record, identify and classify, measure and then return the data of your survey. And if we think back to our STEM skills, this survey meets lots, if not all, of these skills. Slide, we're going to look a bit about tree health, about pests and diseases. So the Opal Tree Health Survey was developed in direct response to the UK government's growing concerns about the pests and diseases threatening the country's trees and woodlands. It addresses the government's objectives to raise public awareness of tree health and empower people to work with officials to monitor trees. The survey consists of 3 activities: identifying and assessing general tree characteristics, measuring girth and height, examining trunk, branches and leaves, recording the presence of pests and disease on oak, ash and horse chestnut trees. Due to climate change, we are seeing warmer and wetter weather, which in turn could increase pests and diseases from some of our most well-known trees. Recording the presence of the 6 most serious pest and disease threats, the most unwanted, and reporting them to officials. There we go, Rebecca's back just in time. Well done, Rebecca. So we're on to slide 22, if that's okay.
That's lovely. Thanks, Kate. So we've finished science. Apologies, my internet shut down. I've got snow here and bad weather, so so thank you for carrying on, Lorna.
No worries. No, it's okay.
We're actually going to have a break now. So we've just finished science. We're going to actually have, so yeah, technology is, so trees trees and wood particularly has been very much in our construction since earliest time, but is also something that we can look at in terms of modern engineering as well. So it really connects our past, our present and our future as well. So looking at it from a design and material perspectives, that's where it can really meet technological and engineering outcomes. So something we came across was biomimicry, and this is where you look to nature to solve human problems. We are part of nature, but we can look at the natural world and see, and we've learned lots from the natural world, which has helped us to solve some of our problems. So this is what biomimicry is. And the example we've got here is of a leaf, and the way that harnesses energy from the sun. We've used that analysis and understanding of that process to help us to develop that solar array. So those solar panels, that's how we've sort of used the plants' ability to harness energy, and we've kind of converted that and used it for our own technology as well. So there's lots of examples of this, of how we can look to nature to actually give us some of the solutions, some of the technological solutions that we need, particularly in the sort of some of the adaptations that we need to make with climate change. So on the technology and engineering subject as well, we wanted to look at den building. Obviously that's using materials, and it's something that we recognise that a lot of practitioners do already, but what we were keen to do was to explore the kind of links that you might make through learning when you're actually den building. How would you introduce and frame this from a subject perspective? So den building, problem solving and structures, we've got knot tying, texture and form, habitats, problem solving, we all need a place to hide, absolutely. Knots, angles and choice of material, linked with animal structure and building, absolutely. Then making your own homes for wildlife, certainly. Estimating and measuring, absolutely. Role play for early years and teamwork and construction. Oh, we've got a few kind of responses going in, so that question is opening up now, but I don't know why that hadn't did it before. Do you know, sometimes you have a session, you don't have any technical issues, and this one we seem to be we seem to be having a few. So right, okay, wonderful. Thank you guys for all of those responses. What we'll do, it won't be in the Wordle, but we'll make that for you. We'll make that Wordle up for you and share it. Okay. There's a lovely resource here from the OWL Scotland, which takes you through how you could structure some den building, so how you could maybe research early shelters and look at the requirements of the site, the slope and the drainage, and these are the sort of things that you could bring into the design side of building a den. Thank you guys, there's lots of lovely stuff here, so just keep it coming in. I'll not read them all, but we'll try and incorporate that into what would be the Wordle. But there's ecological impact is something that people have picked up on. It's a way to kind of start exploring animal homes, but you could also think about the impact that you might be having on building that den. Do you keep the den there, or would you leave no trace, in terms of would you want someone else to come and see that den there, or would you dismantle it at the end of your session? So these are all good discussions to have. But certainly around the design and construction, you might really challenge young people, maybe of secondary age, to think about weatherproofing it, maybe furniture to go inside as well. So yeah, lots of ways that you could bring den building and bring different areas of learning in. Thank you everyone. I'll just move this on to our next slide, and I will invite you to use the chat box next in a minute. So within technology and engineering, sort of wood products and wood derived resources are really interesting to explore. So we can then kind of get a sense of how much trees really influence our lives by just looking around and seeing what we have around us that's actually built from trees, from wood or wood derived. So that's actually something I was going to ask you to do just now in the chat box, is just to have a look around your space and just to put in the chat box the kinds of things that you know come from trees. So yeah, that could be wood products, or it could be derived. Yeah, so wood, anything that related to trees. So things that you've got in your space. So just pop them in the chat box, and we'll start having a look and seeing how much influence we have from wood. Yeah, tables and chairs and a willow basket. Wonderful mats, windowsills, a pencil, desk, paper and musical instruments, skirting boards, a bed frame, a wardrobe, lots of furniture, wall art. Yeah, paper in there, wallpaper, brilliant. Fireplaces and utensils and a rocking chair, a notebook, an iPad stand, tool handles and bookshelves, lots of tissues, wonderful, and shelving. And oh, I think that's aspirin. That's a great one. So lots and lots. I think just even that quick look around, just for you to see what is actually around us and how we are surrounded by trees. And this is something with the owls. Thank you, everyone. You can stop now for a moment. That's wonderful. With the Owls Scotland, they've produced another little postcard, what is in the trees, and at the back of this is some suggestions that you could actually take some of these products outside and create a trail, and then young people could kind of actually look at those and see, do they think they're tree products or not. And we've got a little quiz for you here. In this picture, here are lots of wood products or derived from trees, maybe a few surprises in there. So we've got obviously your wood products that are built of wood that you'd notice there. First of all, the toy, then you've got cellulose and paper, like the notebook and the things that you've been seeing, but also nuts and fruits as well that you get from trees. These are the sort of surprises maybe. And also some of the medicines. Someone mentioned aspirin. So some of these things that are derived from trees that we use. There's a tea bag there. In fact, all the things there, apart from most of those in yellow, so the squash, the plastic handle for the screwdriver, I don't know if you can see it your size, and the ball of wool, these are the ones that, oh yeah, gin's there, yes, of course, that's very important. And gum, yes, from tree resin, and you can make soap as well from tree gum. Is for chewing gum and tree resin to make soaps. So yeah, it really does surround our lives, and I think this is a really important thing to start exploring with children and young people about just how reliant we are on wood and trees. But also this can bring in some sustainability issues as well, because you can start thinking about talking and discussing about trees and wood and it being a renewable resource, and how we can replant and safeguard trees and forests as well. So yeah, so quite an interesting start point to think about how we're already using wood, but certainly meets technology outcomes. And on the right here also, I was just thinking as well that we see a lot of John Muir Award groups out there building bat and bird boxes. So again, that's bringing lovely technology skills, a bit of engineering as well, and design work. So that's something that you can do, and it also really benefits that woodland habitat as well, because of providing bats and birds for homes there. So, and we've got a little question going on there, Bonnie, about does fungus count? I think not. I mean, it's not really derived from a tree, but there's a question mark there. Bonnie might be able to answer that. It wouldn't be something I would call a wood product as such, because it's sort of a separate plant. But that would be my response. Bonnie might be able to tell me something different. Just moving on to digital technologies. These are some of the things that we've found useful. So obviously you could take photography out on an iPad or your phone to take photos. You could use this to make your own identification keys or trails. You could produce videos to explain how you measure a tree, to give explanations of things that you're finding out. So yeah, using the technology of photographs and video, a brilliant way to take technology outdoors. Some of these things like Google Maps or Digimaps for DigiSchool. Sorry, I'm going to say this properly. Digimap for schools. Again, you can look at, on a landscape perspective, you can look at an area and see what the tree cover is, how that's maybe changed over time. You can look at the types of forestry that you're seeing as well, so you're kind of getting that overview. But you can certainly look at the changes in our landscape and where we've maybe lost timber, but maybe also where and forestry, and where maybe we are seeing new forests and woodlands being planted as well. Coming to apps as well, so again, taking those apps outside. We mentioned the Woodland Trust Tree ID app, and there's other ones around citizen science that you can use to actually then upload your data. So you can take that technology outdoors with you. You can use things like iRecord or iSpot to help you with identifying things, and then you can upload your data to say, yes, we saw it. And so you can be using all of these technological, sort of digital technology skills as well in the outdoors. We have an answer. Fungus is a non-timber woodland product. Thank you, Bonnie. Moving on to maths. So by looking at a tree, you are looking at a math resource there for the straight away. Oh, sorry, I'll just before I move on to math, there's a question here about, is Opal still, just referring back to citizen science I was talking about, is Opal still live to upload data? So the tree health survey isn't live to upload. You can still use the surveys. So you can still use the field notebooks and all of the resources to help you with carrying out those surveys, but your data isn't uploaded for those 2 surveys. There's one I'm going to mention in a minute, the Deadwood Good survey, which you can upload your data, but for the Opal surveys, it's no longer live, it's not taking the data. But what they have got on their website, and it's well worth having a look, and we'll send a link to this, is some analysis of the surveys that have happened over the years as well. I don't know the answer, Mary, about Digimap having a cost, but that's something we could maybe find out or let you know. Thank you for the question there. So just moving on to maths. Look at a tree, it's a resource, it's a mathematical resource. You can develop so many mathematical skills. So you could be looking at measuring and estimating. You can be looking at surveying and counting and sequencing and generally exploring. So you'll be exploring math skills of shape and size and age and pattern and symmetry. There's just so much in maths that you can do when you're outside looking at trees. There's a resource here on the right hand side looking at maths and numeracy outdoors, and it's got some tree related activities and ideas that you could incorporate. We're going to look at tree measuring just briefly as one of the things that you can do outside. There's a wonderful resource by Owls Scotland. If you haven't come across this already, it takes you through a really progressive experience. So you can start with, this is actually one of the resources, one of the few resources that we are showcasing today that does have some early year suggestions. So you could be measuring the tree by giving it a hug, or using hand spans to measure around a tree's girth, and then measuring out what that looks like on a flat line. It then takes you through actually measuring, obviously with measuring tapes, and getting an idea of how to use measuring tapes. So that's with the girth or the circumference, but also it takes it onto more sophisticated science as well about tree measuring, where you're using concepts of triangles and working out, using a pencil is one way of doing it, where you sort of mark up the length of the pencil. So you have the base of the pencil at the base of the tree and the top of the pencil, and you walk back until it meets the top of the tree, and then you put your pencil down this way, and the end of the pencil is at the base of the tree, and you ask your second person to walk along until you can just see them at the end of the pencil. So you're kind of stood back with your arm out like this, and this is just helping you to get 2 sides of a triangle which are the same, and then you can measure the third one by finding out where that person's walked to, and that will give you the length of the tree. That's the kind of concept, and it gets more complicated trigonometry for secondary level maths as well. So using kilometers and meter rulers and measuring stuff. So it takes you right through that progressive journey of tree measuring. So a really fun one, I think, is the one where you stand, I don't know if you've done this one, folks, but where you stand looking between your legs to get the top of the tree within your legs, and then you can sort of pace back how many steps that you've walked out to then again get that measurement of how tall the tree is. Yeah, it's a very fun one, that one. So great resource, as I say, lots of maths outcomes there. Another thing to think about as well with measuring trees, not just the height and the circumference as well, is to also think about some carbon calculations as well. So this relates back to the climate change topic that we were climate change issues that we were talking about earlier. So certainly with secondary, there's some pretty complicated secondary maths. We can share a link to the Teach Climate Truth lessons. There's a series of lessons there produced by a geographer. I think Jenny might be able to share that in the chat box just now. And he takes you through quite a complicated mathematical process, which is definitely spot on for secondary school level, about actually working out the carbon in trees. So as Lorna said, about 50% of the tree is of its density is carbon. So if you can find out the density of a tree and you can work out its size, so whether you work out the height and the circumference, the radius of the tree and its canopy, you can then work out how much tree there is and then work out the density of it. For primary level, you might just want to take this down to sort of simplify the math slightly to just making those comparisons. So in the top image here, we've got the sort of densities of the trees compared. So oak is quite dense. It's 740 kilograms metre cubed, compared to Scots pine, which is only 510. So you could even just do a very rough and ready, right, here's the size of our tree and this is the density of our tree, and ask those kind of questions, which would be better for storing up more carbon. I mean, it's a little bit more complicated because there's things about the age of the tree and how fast they grow, but it's kind of teaching those principles and problem solving and using your initiative as well. So Alice has shared here a lovely resource. This is quite a quite good one once you've got the age and species, and this is about working out a tree carbon calculator. Thank you, Alice. So yeah, there's lots of measurement that can be done with trees. One of the surveys that we came across that we really like is this is TCV's the Dead Good Dead Wood survey. I always have to read that one, and this is where again there's loads of measuring opportunities here. Unfortunately you do need a specific area of woodland. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's 100 hectares squared. Am I right, Lorna? It's a reasonable size, so it's not something you could necessarily do in your school grounds or if you've just got a few trees, and you do have to have some dead wood, so a tree that's no longer living. That could either be standing dead wood or fallen deadwood. And what you're doing then is you're measuring the area of that deadwood, you're looking at the age of it, you're measuring the diameter of the deadwood, you're looking at the length of it and also the depth of that your pencil will go into the deadwood, how much is the rot. You're working out area squared of the things that grow on the deadwood as well. So you're looking at things like mosses and ivy and fungi and lichen, and just working out the area of those plants growing on the deadwood. Also as part of the survey, it's quite detailed, but it's brilliant in terms of something you could just carry on looking at. You can also look at the animals as well that are living in the deadwood and on the deadwood as well, because there'll be just different species that are connected to that deadwood. So it's a lovely survey. As I say, it sort of takes you through its science, but it's also lots of measuring as well. So I was going to just pass over to Lorna at this stage to just take us through the A of STEAM for arts and
Yeah, back. So I thought I'd like to share a few resources that I particularly like to use when I'm looking at creativity, art and literacy. So Tree Stories, this is a definite go-to resource of mine. It tells the tales and folklores of trees month by month. So February this month is the rowan tree, which is probably my second favourite tree. But today I thought we could look at August, as hazel was the leaf we investigated earlier in the session. So the story of the hazel tree, we learn the story of Finn, who received the hazel tree gift of wisdom and the salmon's gift of knowledge. So if you read the story, it tells you more about the folklore and everything about this certain tree. So when you sit beside a hazel tree, remember Finn, for he now sleeps in the hills of Alba, but awaits the call to awaken and protect this land once more. I'm sure as a protector of the land, he'd appreciate this story being told with 3 of the John Muir Trust staff here. So I thought that was quite a nice one to share. The Tree Stories book's available as a free download. Again, a link will be in our follow-up email, and it's also available in Gaelic. The John Muir Trust has another nice resource called Literacy in Nature. Literacy in Nature Resource Guide, to give it its full title. And this highlights how nature and the outdoors can inspire and support literacy skills. It can easily be adapted for STEM, and the Lost Words is also in this. So the Lost Words is the larger book on the left-hand side of the slide. It's a really big book, and it was made up because there was words being removed from the junior dictionary. So Robert McFarlane wrote spells, I suppose he calls them. They call them poems or spells, using these words, and they're all acrostic poems. It's not just a really nice written book, but the art in it's absolutely stunning. And I've used the Lost Words and the more recent Lost Spells, which is a smaller size book, many times, not only to encourage literacy, but also, as I said, has the most wonderful artwork, inspiring both art and creative writing. A teacher I was once working with was so pleasantly surprised to hear a pupil of hers say, "Oh, I can't wait to get back to class to write a poem." And, you know, she said she had never ever heard this child be excited about doing any written work. On the John Muir Awards website, The information and resources include a free explorer's guide to download for the lost spells and for the lost words. The explorer's guide plus posters of Conquer, Bramble, and there's also a lost words Padlet for sharing creative outputs. And don't forget, we've got hashtag the lost words. So that was just a quick overview on literacy resources I enjoy using. So over to Rebecca, who's going to talk a little bit about careers.
Thanks, Lorna. So we're just closing up.
Sorry, we do some chat stuff there, Rebecca.
If you wanted to.
Yeah, I've just spotted it.
Yeah, so there's a few comments there that have come in, and then we'll move on to the last bit. Okay, have you used the lost word? My class loved it too. Taffy Thomas has some great nature stories. So yeah, just using stories is great. So so interesting. John Muir Trust Literacy in Nature. Yeah, so we've run literacy and nature course, and we've also got a John Muir Award resource guide on literacy as well, which we can share with you. Alice Arnott there has just shared the lost word spell song. So again, they've put some musicians have looked at the poems and put those to their own music as well. So that's lovely to listen to as well. So I think you mentioned the lost spells, didn't you, Lorna? And there was a lovely one, Oak. I don't know if you wanted to read that or not, or I'll move on. Great. Okay, so we're just finishing up now. I wanted just to signpost some other resources. So just before we go, so this is looking at careers in forestry. So we've got the Royal Forestry Society's website, and you can see there's lots of different videos to have a look at about the different kinds of careers in the forest sector. Now, this is probably more traditional woodland management careers. But that's very inviting, obviously, and a big industry around that. So a lot of the technological stuff that we've talked about as well. There's a big driver for careers in forestry, but also something we wanted to share as well, and we'll put it in the link. The LOST team, so that's the Learning Outdoors support team that Lorna is part of, have developed a series of working in wellies videos, and these are great because they had quite a focus on women working in the outdoors, so they go a little bit broader than just the forest sector as such. They look more broadly at woodland management. So you might there's videos on teachers that work using the outdoors. There's also videos on rangers services, for example, and how they relate to trees and forestry in the outdoors. So working in wellies is a great resource, again, just to show young people all the different kinds of careers and opportunities. And this does link back to STEM skills, and developing the young workforce and employment opportunities. So we will signpost you to a couple of resources there in case that's of interest. So at the beginning, we started with setting the context for the session, the curriculum context of the four contexts with a refreshed narrative. So here's one that we've populated with some ideas. You might have some additional thoughts from experience in the session today or from your work and your own practice. So we would really like to send this out and for you to have a look at that and just to suggest and make any sort of additions to this summary that we've done here before we share it more widely. So we've got in there things like for personal achievement, not just the awards that we've mentioned, like the John Muir Award or the RSPB Wild Challenge or the Young STEM Leader Award, but also other ways that you can mark personal achievement with trees and forests. So that might be about recognising a tree, for example, and being able to identify it. That's actually a real sign of personal achievement. In interdisciplinary learning, we've got some forest school fits perfectly with this in terms of a pedagogy. We've got the climate ready classrooms, again, as sort of using as a topic, and the UN goals as well. So lots of ways that you can use trees, woods and forests in an interdisciplinary way. So with looking at the culture and the ethos of the school, obviously you could build this into the climate conversations you might be having, your eco schools work that you might be doing as well, and the topics of biodiversity, for example. So there's lots of ways that you can really bring this tree theme into the ethos and culture of the school as well, and the community there. And the bottom one was about the subjects, the different subjects, and how you can bring a different subject lens. And I think hopefully over the session, hopefully we've given you some different ideas of how you can link trees, woods and forests to STEM subjects and to arts as well. As I mentioned, we're going to follow up with an email with all of the links, and we'll try and collate some of the chat, the wonderful chat that we've had as well, just so we can put that into Wordle so that it acts as a real refresher to you about the session and reflects with a real richness that we've had from the session. So we will send that up to you. And one of the links will be to this STEM by Nature resources Padlet that we've got. And as I mentioned, this is part of a 2-year pilot. So we've been collating resources and working through different themes. There's a lot in here. So not suggesting that you kind of want to digest this easily, but it has been organised by columns and themes by the UN goals. So there might be some links that you can make there with the UN goals and with nature and sustainability. So hopefully that might be a good starting place or a support for future work. Have to mention the wonderful work of Julia Robertson, the work that she does on her blog. You can search by subject and find activity ideas. It's a real wealth of ideas on her blog there, so really worth having a look at. And she's produced a couple of resources there as well, Dirty Teaching and Messy Maths, which looks at sort of curriculum areas as well. So yeah, really recommend that. Obviously the Owls Scotland website, a great place to go. We will be uploading the session guidance, so the guidance for this session with all of the links, and if you wanted to run a session like this for your colleagues or peers or further out with that, if you wanted to run that session, the Owls Scotland website is a place to go. We'll be uploading the session guidance on there, but a lot of the resources we've mentioned are on that website. The Outdoor Learning Directory as well as sort of the portal for outdoor learning in Scotland. You've got a lot of the agencies there, Scottish Forestry, National Parks, and Nature Scot. So they're all sharing their outdoor learning resources on this directory. So again, that's a really good place to go to get ideas. And Scottish Forestry, we've signposted a couple of great things on the Scottish Forestry website, the careers side of things, and also with the Tree ID as well. So there's some great resources there too. So that brings us really to the close of the session. We wanted to finish a little bit earlier, just to give you a little bit of time to feed out an evaluation form. So there is a link here, but also just to give space as well for any further questions. So just before we close up, I'd just like to really thank my colleagues, Lorna, for delivering, and particularly with everything going haywire on my end. So thank you very much, Lorna, and Jenny, who's been stalwart at the background there. Thank you too for Bonnie, who's helped us to put this session together, and to Rob Bushby as well for getting this all set up. It's been a delight to work on this, and we hope that it's fitted what you wanted. It's given you some new ideas. We'd be really interested to hear how it has gone and to get your reflections on the evaluation form. So but please do post any questions in the chat box. We'll be here for another sort of 10-15 minutes or so, and thank you very much for your full participation.